Hi, I'd like to welcome back to lesson 2 of my current series, Music Theory is Only a Theory. The idea is that we keep adding on chords to our chord progressions and we understand their relationship to each other. We'll start with the guitar. Now, typically, I like to go in alphabetical order when I'm illustrating chord progression. So we'll start with an A chord. Right? Some people play it like this, but I'm kind of a rock and roll guy, so I play it that way. You know, pinky on top. If you need some sort of root note, whatever the case may be, this is A and this is D. So they have a 1 and 4 relationship. A being the first note of the A major scale, and as a result, the first chord, and D being the 4th note of the A major scale, and as a result, the 4th chord. Now that is the open A to D. Of course, we can bar the A to D. But that's really like playing an E to an A with a capo, which is okay, very good way to understand these things, but right now just A to D as open chords. So if A is number 1 and D is number 4, then the 5 is always 1 letter above the 4. So if D is 4, E is 5. And hearing the 1, 4, and 5 now, you can really hear how this chord progression works. Lots of songs use that chord progression. But the beautiful thing about the 5 chord is that it doesn't really matter what order you put it in, it's still usable. You can go backwards. And you can also change the order to this. So it doesn't really matter what order you play the 3 chords in. What matters is that it's the 1, the 4, and the 5 of any given scale. In this case, the A scale, A major. Okay, so we're going to skip now to make it easy and go C to F, open chords. So if the 5 chord, after hearing that 4 chord F coming from the 1 chord C, is 1 letter above the 4 chord, then if the 4 chord's F, the 5 chord's got to be G. And sure enough, you can hear that relationship again. Well, once again, it doesn't have to be in that order. It could be F, C, G. It could be G, F, C. It could be C, G, F. A little Crimson Clover action there for you. Tommy James, Joan Jett. Whatever the case may be, chord progressions using the 1, 4, and 5 abound in the world of rock and roll, because the original rock and roll chord progression was a 1, 4, 5 progression. All right, time to play the bass, and as you can see, the bass only has 4 strings, so it's a little easier to wield. We talked about the 1 and 4 being natural for the bass because the strings are tuned to 1 to 4. E to A, that's 1 to 4, in the key of E. In the key of A, 1 to 4 is A to D, next 2 strings. And finally, 1 to 4 in the key of D, D to G. So we're already there. But to help us on the bass, we really need to fret. In other words, we need to put our 1 to 4 on actual frets. So I'm going to go to the first fret. 1 is F, 4 is B flat. It will always be 5 at 2 frets above the 4. 1 letter above as well. But on the bass, you always want to make sure you got that 2 frets above the 4 to actually play the entire progression. So here's F, B flat, and 2 above is C. That's the 5. E, 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 kind of important. Notice the chord progression was 1 to 4 to 1 to 5. Another chord progression that we hadn't really messed with, but that comes from the 3 chords. Because if you have 4 slots to fill with 3 chords, you got lots of creativity available for you there as far as how you might want to fill them. Maybe one chord goes twice as long as the others. That happens a lot. So keep these things in mind when you're dealing with 1, 4, and 5 chords. Now in the bass, there's something very important about the 5 chord, and that is it becomes your alternate bass note for a bass line. So if you're playing the key of F, and you go to your 5, which now you know is C, you just came up with the second tone. And that's the #1 go-to note for bass players after they play the root. Now, if you want the complete line, you want the octave higher root as well, which is also 2 frets away from the original note. It's also 2 strings away. So you have the root, the 5th, and the higher version of the root, the octave higher version of the root. That is the stock bass line that can't miss. F major, F minor, doesn't matter. If you're playing G, same thing. It's G, C, and D. D's the 5, so sure enough, G can go to that, as well as the high G. Notice the position of the fingers. On guitar, you'd be making a bar chord right now, but on the bass, you're creating a bass line. A, same kind of deal. A, D, E. A, E. A, high A. So if you're just on A, what a great line. Switch to D now. You know that's the 4, and you know this is the line that you can switch to. E, that's the 5. Once again, the bass line is there for you. All you have to do is know what frets. It's always going to be the same. Point your finger on the name of the chord or note you're on, and then 2 away for the 5th, and next door for the octave. Okay. Then we go to the B, and of course the 4 is E, and the 5, F sharp. Here's the root. Here's C, F, G. C, F, G. See, the pinky has got that higher C covered. Here's D, G, A. So you heard the high D there with the pinky. So it's a twofold scenario. You've got your root, your 4, and your 5, but you also have a bass line to any particular chord, whether it be major or minor. 1, 5, 1. The same thing occurs on the A string. Here's B, B, E, F sharp, C, F, G. Notice how that 5 always comes into play. D, G, A. Pretty easy to find. E, A, B, F, B flat, C. See, it doesn't really matter if I know the notes or not. The sound is there. G, C, D, which is an octave higher version of G, C, D. It's always played the same way. Even on the D string, you can play F, B flat, and C, or G, C, and D, or A, D, and E, B, E, F sharp, C, F, and 12th fret, G. I hope you don't go too much higher than that because it starts sounding like a guitar instead of a bass. All right, so for the bass, the 1, 4, 5 represents 2 things: an understanding of the next chord that you're most likely going to encounter, but also the beginning of your bass lines that allow for octave work. And it's really crucial that you do that because let's say you're playing some blues in C. It all revolves around that octave line. And And so the position of the octave ends up being the bass player's favorite position because you get all your great bass lines from that. All right? Now we're going to switch to the piano, and hopefully it'll all make sense by the end. Here you go. Oh, welcome to the piano. I'm in the middle of the instrument right now, as you can see. So still looking for that middle C area I always seem to be looking for. In this case, thumb is on middle C. And as you can see, all 5 fingers are playing white keys. Now, this goes back to the kids lesson I posted earlier this week, but even for adults, this position ends up being a great starter position. Now, with that in mind, thumb, middle, and pinky make the C chord. So when I go from C to the 4 chord F, I've shown you that instead of moving all the way up to the 4 chord in root position, and today we will be dealing with the 5 chord, which is just above the 4 chord. Notice that relationship. They're exactly the same, except they're one white key away from each other. One whole step is what we call that. Well, the easier way is to play the C and then lift your middle and pinky to move them over, but keep your thumb the same. So here's the 1 chord, here's the 4 chord. If that's the case, then the 5 chord has to be one above it. Makes sense. 1, 4, and 5. Now, what's cool is that you can also play in octaves. We talked about this last time, where if you play your C chord in an octave, your F chord can be played in that same octave. But for the G, just go to the 3-note version, and if you're feeling rambunctious and want 4 notes, add the 7th. We talked about this on the guitar, that some people like to add the 7 to the 5 chord. That gives you a 4-note 5 chord, as well as a 4-note 1 chord, a 4-note 4 chord, 4-note 5 chord. Now, how much you want to play is up to you. But one thing's for sure, the blues starts on the C chord in the key of C. It then goes to the F chord and back to the C chord. Finally, the G chord, the F chord, and the C chord. See, all that ad-lib style playing that I'm doing involves playing in an octave position. You can't really learn how to do that without the octave position. So my suggestion is to play your chords as octave chords. Except for that 5 chord, leave it plain or add the 7th, whatever you're feeling. Now let's review that in some different keys. Here's A to D, and up 1 to E. That's with the 7th added to the E. Here's D to G. You got a smile so bright. We did that last week, right? Then the A chord. Well, you could have been anything that you wanted to. See that 5 chord, 4 chord, and 1. Here's the 7th added to the 5 chord. The 4 chord is an octave and 1. E, there's something happening here. See, the octave's kind of nice because it makes you realize, oh, there's an E in both the E chord and the A chord, the 1 chord and the 4 chord. But the B inverted looks like this. It's a hard chord, as it is on the guitar. Add the 7th, even harder, as it is on the guitar. Finally, G to C. The 5 chord is D. Now, you can play your D root position, just like you can play your C root position. Nothing wrong with that at all. Great way to do it. So you go from G to C, back to G, D, C, G, or as we mentioned, any order. That's Sweet Home Alabama. Or Werewolves of London. Whatever the case may be, D, C, and G. Different order, right? C, G, D. There's another order for you. C, D, G. Yet another one. Anything's possible when you're playing the 1, 4, and 5 as far as. If you do practice every day, you'll find it does come quite quickly. Enjoy yourself. I'll see you in about a week.